Hello and welcome to today's daily response video. I'm Zara Rush, creative producer for People Make It Work, and today I am joined by our associate Jo Launder. Hi Jo.
Hi Zara, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay, thanks. Yeah, not too bad today.
Yeah, we're like Thursday over midweek. Yeah. Jo, could you tell us a little bit about your career so far and your background and the areas of specialism that you're bringing into consultancy work now?
Yeah, sure. I'm relatively new to consultancy and I have only just joined People Make It Work in the past couple of months actually. So my background is in libraries. I'm a librarian by qualification and by background, but actually what I've been working mainly as is a leader in the library services and in charities most recently. So the role that I held most recently was in a public library charity in Devon.
Okay, we're really glad to have you as part of the team now. We'd be really interested to hear about what you've been applying in the last 8 weeks to support yourself and that's been helping you within your own practices.
Sure. So I was thinking about our conversation today and thinking about what's really been, I guess, dominating my thoughts in lots of ways over the past 8 weeks. And that's mainly been around adapting. You know, we've all needed to adapt in so many ways over the past few weeks and months, both on a personal and a human level, but also in relation to our working lives. And as I just mentioned, I'm relatively new to the world of consultancy and freelancing and being a People Make It Work associate. And I took the decision in the autumn of last year to leave my role as a senior leader in a charity to set up on my own as a consultant and as a freelancer. And I left that role in January of this year. So from February onwards, I'd already been adapting myself to this sort of whole new world and this whole new way of life of working for myself, working from home, exploring co-creative spaces and working with other people, new areas of work. So I was about 6 weeks into all of that, and that sort of, you know, adapting to that new world of mine when we hit lockdown. And then I found myself having to adapt again to something very different that nobody really had foreseen or experienced, and certainly not something that I could have foreseen or predicted when I made my decision to sort of go out on my own last autumn. So that's really been dominating my thoughts quite a lot, and what adapting means for me. So I just thought today I'd share my insights really and my perspectives around this. And I've got my own sort of little 5-point plan, strategy, whatever it is that you might want to call it, based on the word adapt. I sort of sat down and wrote out adapt on a page, and then I've sort of scribbled some things next to it that sort of really helped me work through that process.
Yeah.
And think about those different stages and break it down.
I'd love to hear about the strategy and how you're applying that.
Great. Yeah, so I just hope that what I've got to share will resonate hopefully with you, Zara, and with some other people, and that might prove useful or provoke some further thoughts or provocations really in some way. So starting with the first A, in adapt, that's really been for me about an acknowledgement of what's happening, and I think it really is important to acknowledge the change that we're all going through, the confusion, the lack of clarity, the lack of answers that we've got to what we're all experiencing. And so within that, you know, that there's also that period of sort of acclimatizing. We're all realising in some way we're adapting to new ways of working, we're adopting different routines, and we're finding, you know, that our lives and that our realities have really shifted and changed. But for me, there's also something really positive within all of that, and thinking about what the new possibilities could be around the sort of new realities. But, you know, just we're not really sure what that means for us and what that really looks like. Although I think we're feeling more certain around some things, and that's sort of evolving and developing, perhaps than where we were at the sort of early stages.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of moving on then, thinking about the letter D in adapt, I think definitely at the beginning there was a lot of distraction. Certainly conversations that I was having with people, and a lot of what I was hearing was that people were distracted, they were finding it really, really hard to focus. And I think that was certainly true for me and friends, but also in sort of work context as well. And people were in that sort of just immediacy of trying to make some sense of what was happening and to deal with it in a practical way. But, you know, that was also quite a challenge because of everything that was going on. But I think what I'm seeing now is that people are sort of shifting away from that, and they're almost ready to sort of start to deliver again, or to develop some sort of plans and some thoughts around that. And I think I'm sensing that there's a real sort of appetite for that now. And I found a really good thing this week, that sort of a thinking and a planning tool that Counterculture had put up on their website, which I certainly had a look at, and I thought, you know, might be something that other people might want to take a look at and might find helpful as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. Have that example to be able to follow as well.
Yeah, it looks like it could be a really useful tool for if people feel that they're at that point that they want to, and I'm sensing that is where people are at now, that there's a bit more of an appetite as we've moved further through the process and the change. And then moving on to the next day in adapt, that's made me think a lot about agility and that need to think differently and do differently, and that can be on a very personal level. And I think one of my hopes really from this whole experience is that we will retain that thinking differently and doing differently, and we'll make some really positive changes, that we won't just go back to the way that we did things before. You know, there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, around the impact on the environment and the positive impact it's had on the environment, these changes that we've been forced to make.
Yeah.
So I think I've got a real hope that we'll learn from some of that, and that we'll take some of that forward with us. And I was also really struck by Eleanor Hara's video and her tips about experimentation. She gave a really, really good practical guide to how you can sort of test and experiment, but in a really agile way without it becoming overwhelming or too costly. So yeah, again, you know, that's something else that I definitely recommend in terms of a tool or a resource that people might want to take a look at.
I love that point. It's kind of chimes with like welcoming the new, kind of the new learnings that are coming from this situation that we might carry forward and that actually are benefiting us, and the ability to keep it fresh, keep testing. Don't worry, you know, we're all learners all the way along through our lives, so it's kind of that fearless pioneering, really.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that, and I thought it was really well done. It's quite simple steps to sort of test and plan. Yeah, it was great. Okay, so moving on to my P in adapt, and there's quite a lot under P, so you'll have to forgive me. There's quite a lot of P's. But I think first and foremost, you know, P is for people, and you know, at the heart of this, we're just people, aren't we? We're trying to navigate our way through things on different levels. We're adapting in our own ways. We're trying to figure it out for ourselves, whatever that might mean. but also thinking about our audiences and our communities and what it means for us in our organisations in that sense. And I think it's really important that we don't forget about our relationships with ourselves and with others, but also that we're compassionate as well within that, to ourselves and to others. I think that's really, really important. I think kindness is something that you know, that we must all hold on to, and how we can sort of share our kindness with others is really, really important. Definitely something I've been thinking about a lot. And I think following on from that, I think purpose, I think I've heard a lot of people talk about purpose, about, you know, for organisations linking back to their organisational purposes, their values, their mission statement actually has been really important, more now than ever, and that's underpinned a lot of their decisions and thinking even more over the past few weeks than it's ever done. And so as a consultant, I've been thinking about what are my own purposes, what are my own values, how can that really sort of shape and underpin what I'm doing or what I'm wanting to do at the moment. So yeah, sort of that reassessment of purpose or priorities as well in that process of adapting.
Yeah, kind of links to another associates video. So Rob McPherson has done a video like this all around kind of purpose, but linking to kind of brand. But it makes you really think about your values organizationally. You start with like the values, and then you let that come out through everything else. So that's another really good link.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen that. I'll look that one up then, Sarah, later. And I guess that sort of links into it to my next point, which is about how we are sort of participating and communicating perhaps in different ways than we're used to. Zoom obviously being a prime example of that. And we're connecting with individuals but with audiences in ways that we would have anticipated. And I've been keeping a close eye on what's going on in public libraries, and I've been really, really impressed with the way that they've been connecting with their audiences. So using Zoom and Facebook Live and other digital tools to enable things that they would have delivered in the physical building. So things like their story times or their Bants and Wine, reading groups, or even just sort of having a chat with people if people are just wanting to connect in and have a chat. And that's not something that libraries were in the habit of doing before, but actually I see that that's going to be something that will continue, that they're not, they're going to be looking at how they can continue some of those things that they've adapted as part of this process and adopted.
Yeah.
But I do think as well, sort of under the P's, there's something about pausing really and reflecting and actually pacing ourselves. So not sort of rushing headlong into decisions and trying to define a way forward too quickly, but just pausing and taking a breath sometimes might serve us a lot better in the long term. And I certainly found myself having to pause and take a breath quite a lot in different ways during the past 8 weeks. And perhaps, just acknowledging really that is all part of adapting and understanding sort of what we're doing, what we might need to do going forward.
Yeah, and the process of acclimatizing to everything that's happening and moving with, what we're hearing from the outside world, and how we sort of climb out and beyond this at some point. Yeah,
Definitely. And then finally we're on to tea, and I think that's made me think a lot about transition really, and that process of transitioning to a different way of being or working, or whatever that might be. And we're all going to be changed, or we all are being changed or have been changed by this process. But yeah, that sort of whole process of transition I think's a really interesting one, and taking the time to do that and to do that well. And then finally, I think for me, it's about being thankful and being reminded, actually, I've been very well, you know, I've been lucky in that sense, but it's definitely reconnected me with the little things that are important, and I've taken sort of great benefit and solace in some ways from the little things. So just a walk in the park and nature and baking and just a chat with friends, I think it's been a bit of a reality check in some ways around that. And I've really appreciated it when people have reached out to me and to make that connection and to check in with me. So I've been really thankful for that. And again, I think that's something else, that sort of kindness and that reaching out is a really important message for all of us at the moment. So yeah, so that's my thoughts really around adapt and adapting.
I love your adapt model. It's amazing. If we can, let's go through the key words again. So I picked up A for acknowledgement and acclimatization.
Yeah.
D, there was one that was like around distraction. So like being mindful of the fact that this period of time could be really distracting. But also deliver and develop.
Yeah.
We had A for agility. P had people, purpose, participating, and pause. And T had transition, and I love this one, thankful. Being thankful for what we're finding when we've been kind of our lives have been put on pause in some ways, but kind of all the good things that can come from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Wow. Joe, I'm really
It's
excited
note
to kind of,
taking.
yeah, I'm excited to put that into practice, and I hope that some of our listeners and viewers will too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.